A point-and-shoot nature photography adventure. 11 days in Yellowstone National Park with my friends, late September and early October 2024, with my Sony a6700 and Tamron 50-400 Di3 zoom, and my Sony a5100 with the Sony E10-18 f4 wide-angle zoom. My first extended trip with this setup. Original improvisation on Native American-style flutes inspired by the adventure. First night, grizzlies, 2 sows with cubs, after caraway roots in the meadows across the canyon off Tom Miner Creek Road, sun going down on the ridge behind, bears at 676 yards, or 4/10 of a mile, 1 to 4 megapixel crops from the a6700's 26 megapixel sensor, with the Tamron at 600 millimeter equivalent, and the sun lighting the peaks to the east. Early start in Gardner and then into the park. The Mammoth Hot Springs herd of elk at first light. Number 24, the dominant bull, showing who is boss. Some magpies for distraction. And the only elk we saw in the sun, up below Upper Terrace, a young bull with asymmetrical horns that number 24 tolerates around his harem. On the a6700, I used my bird and wildlife modifications to program for the whole trip, with subject detection set to animals and birds, but I did change the detection priority to animals. Upper Terrace of Mammoth Hot Springs, with the a5100 and the wide zoom. I find I can keep the a5100 in superior auto and let it select the scene mode by itself, landscape here. It does better than any custom program I've tried, including HDR. Amazing landscape. Tell and wide-angle autumn color at Goblin Rocks and the Golden Pass area. Good for pika, but not today. The landscape just below Swan Lake. I was surprised at how much I used the 75mm equivalent end of the Tamron zoom for landscapes in the vastness of Yellowstone, and a comparison shot at 15mm with the a5100. Sheep-eater Cliffs, another stop for pika, the little rock rabbits of the west with the big round ears. None, but maybe the pair of ravens guarding the talus slope are to blame. Lower Falls on the Yellowstone and the canyon. Here, again, I took as many landscape shots with the Tamron as I did with the wide-angle zoom. The extra reach allows me to punch in on the details. Our first coyote, maybe 300 yards below where we were on the bluff above the river. Not bad for a 5 megapixel crop at 600 millimeter equivalent. Mud Volcano, a short walk up around the loop to Devil's Mouth Spring and the mud volcano itself. The close-up is with the Tamron, the rest with the a5100 and the wide zoom. Lake Yellowstone, an impressive body of water by any standard. a5100, 15mm equivalent. First bison. Bad light, but I had to have one bison for my first day in Yellowstone. And a coyote from the car window as we stopped for roadworks just outside Norris. Sheep-eater Cliffs again for pika. We found some up a steep slope in a natural amphitheater in the cliffs, just as the sun set behind the ridge to the west. Way cute, rock bunnies. Then racing the setting sun home to Gardner, Golden Gate Pass. First light again for the Mammoth Hot Springs elk. The young bull on the ridge. Around the ridge with number 24 and his harem still in shadow. Number 24 bringing his harem across the road and into the sun. Lots of action as he anointed himself with urine sent from his eye glands and vegetation he dug up. and as he moved his harem up the foot of the terrace and onto the ridge behind. I even remembered to press the record button to get some video. Surprisingly, number 24 tolerates 2 other bulls. This one is almost as large, but not nearly as healthy looking. Tourists with cell phones and inadequate cameras will persist in getting too close. Lower terrace of Mammoth Hot Springs in full sun. I used both cameras to try to capture this amazing and unique landscape, filling in the wide-angle shots with details from the Tamron, and again, a snip of video to show the flow of the superheated water. Roaring Mountain, an acidic solfatara dome with many fume holes, steam vents. Activity varies day to day. This was a good day. Again, tall and wide shots. Around the Firehole Lake Drive loop. White Dome Geyser from Surprise Spring itself with video. And then around closer to White Dome. Finally, Firehole Spring and Lake. Again, some video. The Raven on duty at Firehole Lake parking, up on the rail of a pickup, exploring an unattended duffel bag, and not bothered at all by our close approach. Yellowstone is not Yellowstone without Old Faithful and Old Faithful Lodge. 75 millimeters was just a bit long for the geyser, so I found myself switching cameras in mid-spout. West Yellowstone, along the Madison River. Not much to see. 2-striped grasshoppers on a lichen-covered rock along the river with the Tamron in its macro persona at 109 millimeter equivalent. Mountain goat, high above the river in the shadow of the cliffs, 876 yards by my friend's rangefinder. 5 megapixel crop from the a6700 with the Tamron at 600 millimeter equivalent. Amazed to get anything at all. Again, racing the sun home through Golden Gates and over the New Mesa Road from Mammoth to Gardner. Next morning, the moose on the slope behind Floating Island Lake, more like a pond, surprised us. About 220 yards away at the Tamron 600 millimeter equivalent, a cow and a calf walking or swimming along the pond edge, feeding on the vegetation below waterline. Such a treat. Way too many photos. Cow and calf on the slope with the bull in close attendance, and up over the ridge into the next draw. No wolves at Slough Creek. Too late because of our time with the moose. Our first decent bison photos, though. Lots of cottonwoods in fall color down along the river and aspen on the hillsides. And then in the afternoon, a short run up the Beartooth Highway, mainly for scenery and aspens. Back through the Lamar Valley with one more stop for bison. Next morning, a redo for Rob on the moose at Floating Island Lake. Me with my travel tripod and camp stool set up this morning. The bull is more cooperative, cow again feeding in the water, and then the whole family across the slope and over. Some aggression, bull on calf. Just in time for the bison coming down off the high slopes, our first red dogs of the trips, this year's late calves. Photographing a fairly active herd in the valley below us, two young bulls snuck up behind us on the ridge, 25 yards above us, frame filling at 600 millimeter equivalent. For a while, we had bison crossing the road in both directions. Bison jam. Our first close pronghorn, not antelopes. Pronghorns are a family all themselves. They worked into a small bowl between the road and the river. We watched for close to an hour. Not just us, of course. Start them early. Eventually, they made a run for it, up the steep bank to the road and across and up the ridge. Again, no wolves at Slough Creek. Up over Dunraven Pass to see if anything was on the carcass in the Hayden Valley. No. Folks at the pull-off by the river told us there was a bear jam down the road where grizzlies and wolves were being seen. Yes, but over half a mile away on a distant bluff. A hunting coyote in the bend of the stream below the grizzlies and wolves while we were waiting on the bear. The best I could do at half a mile. A6700 and the Tamron at 600 millimeter equivalent, then cropped to 2 to 4 megapixels. The wind blowing so hard I could barely keep my feet under me, let alone the camera steady, and there was a lot of dust in the air. Still, one more stop at Sheepeater Cliffs, no pika today, but this little striped chipmunk and some scenery with the a5100. A day trip to the Tetons, for those of us who had never been. Checking the carcass by the river on the way, pushing the low light limits of the a6700 with this coyote and the swans. The bear jam was still there, just as the sun hit the bluff where the grizzlies and the wolves were still feeding on the bison carcass. Less wind today, and a lot less dust, but they were still half a mile away. There were 2 grizzlies and half a dozen wolves, testing the resolution limits of both the a6700 and the Tamron at 600 millimeters. We made a pit stop at Mud Volcano, much more active today. On down to the Tetons. No wildlife this afternoon, but spectacular fall scenery. The Sony a5100 and the wide-angle zoom came into play, but also the 75mm equivalent end of the Tamron zoom. A panorama of 3 vertical shots at 75 millimeters, stitched in BMO Stitch Pro, and pushing it a bit, 10 verticals at 75 millimeters. A late afternoon coyote hunting right beside the road and right across from a pullout, right place at the right time, and the a6700 and Tamron and my bird and wildlife modifications to program at the ready. Tuesday, October 1st. Moving day from our Airbnb in Gardner to the Range Rider Lodge in Silvergate, so a late start. A chance to redo my telephoto detail shots of the Mammoth Hot Springs upper terrace, and of course I could not resist a few wide-angle shots under this amazing sky. Goblin Rocks and Sheepeater Cliffs one more time to try for pika in the sun. Success! Rock rabbit with radar dish ears. And one more aspen grove for my friend Rob. Blacktail Plateau Drive, some kind of jam at the lip of the plateau. Wolves on a fresh carcass right by the road. Big gray female and a sleek black male. Leaving the carcass, they passed within 30 yards of us, across the road and on the far side of the draw, within 10 feet of cars further down, right in the road. So amazing, so close. Up and over the plateau for another loop to see if the wolves were back. No wolves, but the jam is still there. I worked my way up to a ridge across from and above the kill with about 15 other people. Too close in hindsight, but the kill is much closer to the road than I expected. The others are gone, and I am sitting alone on the ground behind my folded tripod. Someone's yelling from up the hill, "Behind you! Behind you!" On my feet, just as the gray crests the ridge at eye level and maybe 6 yards. She is as surprised as I am. Too close, way too close, but nothing I can do about it now. Headshots at 600 millimeters. No sign of either alarm or aggression on her part. I am thinking, I am not in your way, just go around, and trying my best to hold the camera steady. And she does go around at about 20 feet. On the carcass, feeding, carrying away something for her pups. I'm not sure I would have gotten anything at all in that situation if not for my point-and-shoot modifications to program and the speed of the a6700 and Tamron zoom. This shot is from Denise's Sony RX-10-4 as the wolf circled me. The rangers came and hauled the carcass off somewhere safer for both the wolves and for foolhardy photographers before we left. Don't do what I did. Still, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. One more loop on the Blacktail Plateau, scenery, and a way too cooperative spruce grouse right by the road. That put us in the Lamar Valley at the peak of activity for the bison and the pronghorn. Still, the Beartooth Highway is calling Rob. Afternoon drive and up and over the pass. No mountain goats, but the alpine tundra and the high mountain lake scenery is amazing. Again, switching back and forth between the Tamron at 75 millimeters and the wide-angle zoom at both 15 and 27. Early morning, heading back to the Lamar Valley. Had to stop for an out-the-window shot of these roadside mule deer. Moose were being reported in the Pebble Creek campground area, so we stopped. Saw 3 way back in the meadow running up over the hill. There was a car pulled off at the end of a line of willows about 20 yards back from the road, so we stopped. A cow moose was feeding along the willow edge. Over the next hour, we got to watch and photograph 2 cows and 2 bulls, one young and feisty and one mature and stately, as they worked around the willow stand. The light was not ideal, still in the shadow of the ridge behind us, but still such an amazing experience. Further down the road and through the valley, with a few stops for roadside bison, and up onto the ridge going up towards Slough Creek, and we hit a bear jam. A black bear was being seen in the rocks and brush and trees on the hillside. Not seen well, but seen. This is the best I could do, overexposing for the shadows and punching through the heavy brush to the shadow of a big pine tree. But it is my only black bear from Yellowstone. There were rumors of a grizzly on the carcass by the river, just coming down into the Hayden Valley, so we went up over Dunraven Pass again and down through Canyon. The bear was gone, and so was the carcass. On the way back, we stopped for some landscapes at Tower Falls, again using both the Tamron at 75mm and the wide-angle zoom. Back through Lamar for a roadside pull-off raven, some more bison action. Another coyote hunting by the road, and a nice mule deer with fawns. Back at the Range Rider Lodge in time for some inside photos. On our last full day in the park, we made a long outing from Silvergate, through the Lamar Valley, over Dunraven, down through the Hayden Valley, since we'd seen numerous bison there the day before, and then retraced our route to end up in Silvergate at sunset. We picked up mule deer at Pebble Creek, but no moose, bison at Slough Creek, but no wolves, stopped at Artist Point for the classic view of Lower Falls and the canyon, popped down to Fishing Bridge for grizzlies, found none. On the way back, we were caught in a bison jam and an actual stampede as they crossed the road. Stopped for some scenery and another amazing Yellowstone sky coming down toward Tower and the canyon. This is another multi-frame panorama, stitched in BMO stitch, and caught a few more pronghorns close to the road. On our last day in the park, we had to pack up and drive back to Bozeman for the flights the next morning. Sunrise in Silvergate, a long time waiting for a coyote and a kill that never came, though a golden eagle did, far, far away. One more bison shot, just because, and our final encounter with a herd of pronghorns on the hill by the Yellowstone River picnic area. We stopped one more time at Mammoth Hot Springs, Upper Terrace, for a couple of shots of the little fountain beyond the parking. So there it is, 11 days in Yellowstone, with an afternoon in the Tetons. Enough for me to gain total confidence in the Sony a6700 and Tamron 50-400 Di3 zoom, and with my bird and wildlife modifications to program mode, and to come to appreciate my Sony a5100 and my E10-18 f4 zoom in a whole new way. Honestly, there is nowhere in North America to equal the grandeur of Yellowstone and its wildlife.